Hey everybody, I'm Amber.
And I'm Maddie.
And we're Witches Talking Tarot. And tonight we are excited to wing it in and fly to you with an episode that is filled with feathers. But most of them are black feathers. Because we're talking about Corvid Corvus. Specifically, crows, ravens, magpies, jackdaws. All those black birds that make you go, caw. I'm sorry, there was a work thing.
Okay.
Whenever we had this one awful boss, when he'd be coming and we weren't doing what we were supposed to, we would caw at each other. So, like, if you were fucking around and you heard your person down the road go, caw, it was like, oh shit.
How inconspicuous. Somebody's got to get that bird
appropriate. You know, you say that, but I'm like, it's so appropriate from the standpoint of the behavior of the birds that we're about to talk about. So I think that's fun.
So Amber
and it goes to something I said to you earlier. Yeah, go ahead.
So Amber and I were discussing this earlier over sushi. These birds are so fucking smart, you guys. They are so smart. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows that, or most people know, crows and magpies and ravens are smart. But do you know just how smart they are? Are you aware that they can recognize faces and situations, and they can decide whether they like you or not because of them memorizing, like, you or themselves? Well, right.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, because, you know, a lot of wild animals, they might make an association with humans based on an experience. But a crow or a raven or one of these Corvid Corvus, right? Because it's like whatever, and then genus, right? Because like corvids also include, because like I have seen online, the reason I phrased it to you as corvids in the first place is I've seen online where it's like ravens, crows, blah, 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 blah. They're all corvids. You call them corvids, which is accurate. However, like blue jays are also corvids.
It's like a big, long list.
It's a very large, but Corvid Corvus with the U.S.
CCVs.
Yes, exactly. That's all the blackbirds. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like 4 and 20 blackbirds sitting in a pie.
Big ass blackbirds.
Oh yeah. But they really are. They're so smart. They can recognize a human face. Not only that, but they're one of the few. Animals that other than humans that have the ability, like Maddie was saying, to not just remember like a person's face. They can remember, and I don't remember the word for this kind of memory. I can't remember. It started with a D, but it means being able to remember like a what happened, where it happened, why you're remembering this thing about it, and it's not in relation to like what's currently happening.
Well, and didn't you say they're one of the only animals that can do that?
They are one of the only animals that aren't humans that can do that. They're also one of the only animals that aren't humans who can communicate that information with their language.
Right, yes, I saw that.
Which is very strange. Like, because bees, they can do their little dance, right? And they can say where the last patch of flowers they saw was. But that's the furthest back they can go. Like, that's the most, removed from the present situation.
Well, see, and I had read also that, like, they're one of the only animals that have any form of communication that's more than, like, this is where food is.
Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's the same mental process.
But so, like, they can actually talk, like, not
they
talk,
can have conversations.
Yes, like,
they really can.
About more than just food.
Yes.
And more than just...
You know what? Because they can mimic, honestly, I bet, and I didn't think to look into it, I wish I had, but, you know, some people keep captive crows and stuff. Because they're able to mimic vocalizations, I bet captive crows can have small conversations, and I bet that's where the thing you read, well, with people, I mean with people, because they can definitely have conversations with each other, but with people, because they're able to mimic vocalizations, they're one of the few animals that can do that in the bird world, and they're able to understand, to a degree, human language. They're able to mimic us out in the woods.
Oh, I'm sure that's why they're so involved with lore.
Well, a captive one, I bet, and I wish I'd read on it, so you guys educate yourselves. I bet a captive one could communicate to a human in human language because they've copied the vocalizations and they understand a connotation for what that word is associated with. And I wonder if, because you were saying like, did I read that it was like a 4-year-old or like a 5-year-old child, like an 8-year-old? I wonder if that's their capability for the language piece. I wonder if that's what that is. Because like I didn't read anything like that because, you know, just what I was reading didn't compare it to any human age group. But I wonder if that maybe is where you read that. Like it just popped in my head because like if they're able to vocalize, they're able to remember, they're able to communicate, they're able to communicate with people, people do keep them captive. It would make sense to me that they could verbally communicate in the same way as like a toddler. You know what I mean?
I can
or
see
like
that,
a young child.
Speaking of, this is going to be a really sad story for a minute. I don't know if you ever saw the video of the parrot. Parrots are not CCVs, no, but they are one of the few birds that can talk back, that can vocalize. This bird watched his owner fucking die, get murdered, and it was the key witness. It could mimic it mimicked everything that happened to the point, like, of the guy getting shot. So, like, it was like saying, ha ha ha, like the person was laughing, and then it was like, no, please don't shoot, and the bird was diagnosed with PTSD, and sometimes, like, the person that took him in said sometimes it'll just randomly start shouting the last words of his previous owner. And is that not horrific?
That is horrific. That is absolutely horrific. Because I've heard of horses that, like, there's a horse that this woman actually hated her husband's horse, and, like, the husband, and she tried to make it look like the horse kicked him to death so that she could justify putting the horse down.
The horse was like, hell no!
The horse, like, they finally figured out that the horse did not kick the man to death, so they saved it from being slaughtered at a glue factory.
Why would you fucking do that, though?
Because she hated the horse, because of how much her husband paid attention to the horse, and how much he loved it, and I guess, you know, like, some relationships get just so bitter and toxic that you hate the things that your partner loves because you hate them so much now or something, or you want them to hurt that bad. I don't know, but anyway, the rescue that took the horse in, anytime like a trailer would slam or something and it sounded like a gunshot, because that's how the guy died, the horse would like have a moment because it had PTSD as well, and it was the only witness to the murder as well, except unfortunately horses are not like Mr. Ed and they can't really talk.
Oh, okay. I was like, who the fuck's Mr. Ed? Oh, Dr. Doolittle. Okay, I understand. I know what you're talking about.
Amber's old.
But it was sad. It was very sad. And you mentioned that they can talk, and I really, really believe part of why they're in so much lore and mythology is because I believe there were these ancient people just talking, and then a random fucking crow like pops up and is like, I was gonna say squawk, but that's not a crow. That's a parrot. Yeah, it's like caw food. And then they're like, what the fuck?
But really, because they make these associations, you know what I mean? And like they can not only can they recognize human faces, they can recognize their own reflection. Like, you know, sometimes you have like
they're not dumb birds that'll fly into the window.
But like not just that, but because like the birds that fly into the window, they really can't see.
No.
And so they just think it's clear space ahead of them. They don't even see their own reflection.
Right.
Like it's not like the birds that are pecking the window, right? Because I've had that happen many times. It thinks it's going at another bird. And I've had fish that the same thing because I used to love male betas, and now I just feel sad for them, but you know, they'll go up to the side of their aquarium and they'll see their reflection and they'll puff up and they'll get ready to fight. And I've even had one that like went. He was the most aggressive beta. He was the most aggressive. I hadn't figured out a way to like cut down the reflection. That might have happened with him. I didn't even know.
Betas are very aggressive fish. Yeah.
But when a crow or a raven or a magpie, when they're checking out their reflection, they don't think it's another bird. They know it's them. They're actually looking like they're preening. And when they're preening, it's not for another bird. They're actually practicing some self-love and some mirror magic.
No, but they do. They recognize themselves. And it's crazy.
Super cool. And
they're
like,
just so smart.
They are so smart. And like, because they can like, they see their reflections. There was the Greek folklore piece that if you put out a bowl of oil, you can catch a I think it was specifically a jackdaw because that's what's more common in Greece, but it is one of the Corvid Corvus. And it'll fall into the bowl of oil because it'll be staring at the other bird because it's a social creature. And that is what the tale was. But like I told Maddie, like I think now that they thought it was because the birds are social creatures because they are social creatures.
Sorry, I'm looking up what this type of bird looks like. Keep going.
Yeah, I don't know what a jackdaw looks like.
I know. I feel like
I liked the Eurasian magpie, which is the smartest. Like the Eurasian magpie is one of the smartest non-human animals, and it has an encephaloid quotient. Oh my god, I can't believe I remembered that. The encephaloid quotient, which is like brain to body mass quotient, that is equal to humans, orangutan, or not humans, but orangutans and gorillas. They're smarter than like whales and dolphins and pigs. Like they are almost as smart as people. They are the smartest bird, apparently. Like they're so fucking smart. I told my husband I want a Eurasian magpie because when you look at
they're beautiful.
They are, because they're black and white. They've got like this white vest on, but otherwise they're black. And when you look at their map across Europe of where they are found, you could overlay my genealogy map, and it's like we're gonna be in the same places. And I don't know that matters at all, but I love it because these birds do show up in folklore across the world because they spread out from Asia 10 million years ago. And they moved to North America and Africa. And like you said, they're
Australia?
On every continent.
They are on every continent except Antarctica.
Okay. That's right. I didn't read that.
Yes, they are on every continent except Antarctica, and that's really cool.
That is really cool. And one thing that I understand... Look, I told Maddie, I love that we're doing these animal episodes because I'm learning so much more about my natural world in a way that I really enjoy. And I'm really like learning these little things piece by piece, and it makes me look back to other things because I learned this thing about our Great Flood episode that I shared with Maddie. But like, it's also making me critically think about things, right? And I was like, because I was like 10 million years ago. What else did we recently cover that had something to do with 10 million years ago? Well, my brain did a thing, and it was 11,000 years ago with the oryx, but
the cows.
Yeah. And so like, I was like looking into like, oh, there's got to be some kind of connection 10 million years ago. And like one thing that I came to realize is I have always thought that the way that birds, for instance, specifically birds, but also anything that's able to move through water, I've always thought that the way that they were able to spread was like, oh, these birds, like a couple of them just flew really, 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 really far, like amazingly far. Like Pangea, right? That's what I always thought too, right? Well, just like Pangea used to be all the land together and then it separated. Well, like land's been doing this for a while, right? 10 million years ago, a lot of this land was connected or closer together. So when they spread out from where they spread out from, it was easy for them to go everywhere because a lot of the places they were at were still connected.
Right,
when
it wasn't that far. Because wasn't Alaska connected to like Russia? Or it was something like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So like, it's just, and maybe other people are out there like, duh, Amber, like, you're fucking stupid.
I don't know.
Well, you know what? I didn't know, okay? And I'm learning, and that excites me. I think it's super cool for me to like learn these different connections, right? Because like we talk about how it's in folklore everywhere, right? And so like I know for a fact that there are crows in Norse folklore because of Hunan and Munin.
Right, and they are Odin's...
They're Odin's crows. They're thought and memory.
Thought and memory on either side of it.
Right. And so I'm learning about, like, I was, like, just kind of refreshing to see if there was more about them that I wasn't thinking about. And, like, in this one thing that was mentioned where somebody was talking to Odin about his wolves, and it named the wolves, and then it named the crows, or the ravens, and I was like, oh my God. Odin had ravens and Odin had wolves. And in nature, we have found that ravens or Corvus birds work with both wolves and coyotes for predation purposes, because these birds are opportunistic eaters. They're omnivorous. They eat carrion, they eat fresh meat, they eat like berries and stuff. They eat corn.
They fucking eat strawberries.
Like, right, yeah. Like they eat vegetation.
They will eat your shit.
Yeah, they will. But they eat meat, and they eat carrion meat, and they eat innards. So they have coupled, or through the eons, or however long, whatever the right word for time in this case is, they've created a partnership with wolves and coyotes, other dog animals, basically, canine predators. And basically what the birds do is they fly around, and they either see prey animals or injured prey animals. And they will call out with a special call to the wolves or coyotes in the area to get the pack that they're working with to know, come here, kill this animal, and we'll all feast on it together. Now scientists, because we've observed this behavior enough, they've actually played the crow's call in areas where the prey animals live, in areas where crows regularly work with the wolves or coyotes, and the prey animals in those areas book it.
They do?
They do, because they know.
They know.
They know that ground reinforcements are being pulled in.
You mentioned was that crows will play with baby cubs. They will play with baby deer or I'm sorry, not baby deer, what the hell, baby wolves.
Yes.
Or was it baby coyotes?
Well, it only mentioned the wolves. Yeah, they prefer wolves. So it seems, I did not read that they do this with wolf cubs.
Coyote cubs.
Wolf cubs. Wolf cubs. I only read wolf cubs. I didn't read coyotes, so I think I said both. But I only read about wolves, and so I don't know for sure.
They'll play with the wolf cubs.
Yeah,
and like Amber was saying,
they'll flick their tail and like pull at their fur.
Yeah, and they'll play and they'll make relationships with the wolf cubs, and then when the wolf cubs grow up, they remember their little crow friend, and they're kind of imprinted and implanted in their mind.
Right. Because, I mean, if you think about it, like, think of, like, the mafia world or something, right? You've got this big, powerful friend. You want to make sure he can snap on you. You want to make sure he doesn't.
Right.
So this is your insurance. He's known you his whole life. Or she. Yeah. You know, this individual's known you their whole life. We played when I was a baby. You were my first babysitter. Right. You know, whatever. Exactly. Like, of course, not only am I going to share with you, but I'm not going to eat you when you take more of your fair share. Because apparently...
It's like they really put themselves in the pack.
Well, they do. And actually, studies have shown that they seem to have, like, favored pack members. Like, they don't necessarily get along with the whole wolf pack. And they don't get along with every pack. And not every pack wants to work with the crows, because sometimes they eat more than their fair share. Right? Like, there have been studies that have shown that some wolf packs that work with crows. Like, this is specific to the ones that are in areas where they work together, okay? That some of the wolf packs will intentionally have a larger pack to make sure that their pack gets more of the food, because crows are smarter. Crows have that ability to forethink, right? So crows will eat, and then they will also take food for later.
Oh, yeah.
And the wolves that don't think to do that, and or don't have they just don't have the cognition.
The mental capacity.
They don't like that, because they're just like, dogs do know, like wolves and dogs, like these canine animals, they do understand the concept of fairness and like equal shares, and or the alpha of the pack getting more than an equal share and everybody else getting like their equal share. So of course, in the eyes of the wolf, I'm sure the crow's share is always the least equal share, probably. But either way, they don't want them taking more than their fair share. So they'll have more wolves just to kind of despite the crows. So it's like literally the thug, like if you, again, look at Wilderness, like the mafia, somebody make this movie. Like Hoodwinked exists. You can make this as a movie. The wolves are like, we're bigger, we're badder, we've got more muscles, so we're gonna own shit. And the crows are like, okay, you go right ahead, dummy. You go right ahead. We'll sit up here while you exert all that energy trying to outwit us with your little dog brains. Go right ahead. We'll wait with our store of food.
Well, and the thing is, in lore mythology, crows are often associated with a couple things. One of them is the trickster. That makes a lot of sense because of the story you just told. Yep. Crows can be tricksters, that's for sure. Yep. And they're very cunning.
They are very cunning because of their intelligence. Like,
yes,
we observe animals. That's part of what we as humans do. We have to for survival, for one. But we saw the way they acted with other animals. They are cunning. Crows have been seen somewhere in like Japan fishing with crumbs. I totally forgot I'd read that.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that. That's crazy. So they're smart.
They are they're so smart. That's why they're associated with cunning and the trickster gods.
Right.
You know, but they're also associated with the liminal, the other world, being able to move from one world to the other world. And that was the first thing I ever learned about blackbirds, was like, that's a harbinger of death. I didn't even know what the word harbinger was, but that was like one of the first like non-animal specific things I learned about crows.
I think that people associate them with death for a number of reasons. One of them being they are, scavenger type birds. They will eat.
Yeah,
they eat what
they can find. Yeah,
exactly, what the wolves leave left over.
They absolutely do, and they're seen as a scavenger, much like vultures. But they're some of the only birds that sing at both dusk and dawn, because most birds are one or the other. Yes. But they are active at both transitions from dark to light, which makes them a liminal thing. But also, not only are they active at both of the transitions from dark to light, a lot of the places they can be found to live are, now I forgot the name, Rapinian or something.
It's near like water.
But like there's a specific name for this kind of, but it's not just near water. It's where land and water come together, like river banks and things like that, because there's a hugely diverse population of animals and plants that live there. And because crows are such like they have such a wide variety of things they eat for their diet, that's a great place to find them. But also from a human perspective, you're watching the crow, you see it as they're in a liminal space, because ancient humans thought of the places where water and land come together as liminal spaces. Just like, if you think about it, the underworld.
Oh, absolutely.
The land comes to a river that then on the other side of the river is the underworld. Really, that's kind of, I didn't even bring the underworld piece into that, although I should have, because it makes perfect sense. But like, I enjoy the Native American crow lore of the crow being associated with the corn goddess, because we always see scarecrows out in fields of corn.
Because they eat the corn.
But, like, there was one specific tribe of Native Americans that viewed the, one of their crops of corn was entirely wiped out. And they weren't like, oh, those horrible crows. They were like, oh, we didn't honor the corn goddess enough. So we had our crops taken away from us. And I know it's sad because obviously they didn't have their corn crop.
Right.
But at the same time, like, yes, it's sad, and also it's beautiful. Like, I thought it was beautiful. They didn't blame the crow for being the crow. They didn't say, you're a bad crow because you ate our crops and we need our crops. They viewed the crow as a harbinger of the goddess. And I just thought that was, like, high-key beautiful from the standpoint of just, we as people tend to view animals as a nuisance. We tend to view animals as something that we need to control or we need to have power over. And really, in the natural world, these animals are just existing. Like, we are just existing. And, a group of birds comes on a field of corn. What's the natural thing for that group of birds to do? You know what I mean? It's just like, I think that tale, like, for me, that tale was so beautiful. But also, like, even in their association with death, because another thing that I read about, especially with the Celts, the association of the crow or the raven. You know, we're using the word crow pretty much interchangeably with blackbird right now, guys. But the Celts, like the inky black feathers, were a way to access the underworld, I read.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, crows or blackbirds are huge in Celtic lore. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Huge.
A lot of them are related to the Morrigan. Check out our next episode.
Yes. And Rhiannon apparently had 3 crows.
Oh, yeah.
She had 3 crows associated with her. But that makes the song Rhiannon mean, I mean,
yeah.
Like a bird in flight. Anyway.
I know, I was trying to think of those lyrics.
I know. I was like, all I could think is like a bird in flight. Wouldn't you love to love her? But, I don't know. I found it highly interesting how we observe the culture of animals, and crows have, or not just crows, but ravens, quote the raven, nevermore. They have so much culture for what we think of as the animal kingdom.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Like, for what we think of from the animal kingdom, like crows, ravens, blackbirds, jackdaws, magpies, they have such culture. Because animals have culture that varies regionally. Because, like, not all crows are near wolves, so they can't all work communally with other predators. Not all crows get along with other crows because they live in areas where the resources are so limited they can't afford to live with somebody else.
It's environmental.
It is environmental. It's regional.
And societal.
It's societal. And something that doing these episodes, I told Maddie, made me understand and learn and realize. We have culture. Animals have culture. Our religious connotations or magical connotations or folklore connotations or mythological connotations for these animals are all based on our own human observation of their behavior in their own personal culture. And their own personal culture that we observe and then record for our own personal cultures, each regional, I have a whole point I'm going for with this, it affects and builds human culture. And this is why some of the societies see crows as trickster gods, because they watch the crow take from one to benefit itself. Not take from one to give to another. They're not better, you know what I mean?
Right. Which again goes very well with their little, what you're saying.
Yes, and it just, we think that we have assigned these things to them, right? Like, I think modern era man at least thinks, like, man assigned this connotation to these animals. And even though we might have, we didn't really assign the connotation. We observed it in relation to either our own world or the natural world, or a combination of them both. And then we recorded it in our own lives. And then we told everybody, this is what this is associated with. This is what this is associated with. We made stories where the crow plays this part, and the bull plays this part, and the snake plays this part. And what other animals have we covered?
The cow.
Well, bull, cow.
Oh.
I mean, yeah. No, you're good. I'm just like, have we done another animal-specific episode?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. So you guys get where I'm going with this, right? Okay. And we think that we made them, but they made us, guys. If you look at it, go back, look at your folklore. Look at the stories that you've always read. Look at why you think what you think about the black cat, why you think what you think about the dog, why you think what you think about the snake. And it's probably going to go back to stories that you heard. Like, oh, I'm afraid of snakes. Okay, why are you afraid of snakes? I'm afraid of sharks. Why are you afraid of sharks?
I think those are evolutionary traits, though. Like,
well, the snake is evolutionary, but also like we have fed into it with the stories. If the stories weren't there, how many modern people would still be afraid of snakes? And obviously,
I think it's
some
a lizard. It's got. Well, you're right. Some of them aren't, but then you've got that lizard brain that's like spiders, snakes, I don't know, sharks. I don't know if they fall into that category, but
Okay, so let's take snakes and spiders off the list. But everything else that you have a mental connotation for, there's a reason for it, and a lot of those reasons come from not our own personal experiences with these wild animals that we rarely ever come in contact with. And if zoos didn't exist, would we even see in real life? You know what I mean? Right? So it's all based on like these stories we grew up with about them. Because like if you think about ancient Romans, like other than the ones that got to go to the Colosseum and see lions and stuff in person, most of them only ever read about them or were told about them because they probably couldn't read, even though they did have the written language at that point.
Right, but I get you.
But yeah, like the point, just like most of our experience with these animals is through the stories told about them, and the stories told about them are based on our observances of their behavior that we try to interpret into the human world. And by doing so, these animals inherently change us.
They do. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know, like...
They change us in our way of life. All animals... They really, truly do.
Sorry, like... There's something about these animal episodes that I just love. Like, I may love the animal episodes more than the tree episodes. I'm not sure
No,
yet.
I think I do. I do.
Like, I really enjoy both of them. Because, like... Here's the other thing, like the Celtic and the Norse seem to have very similar, like their folklore seems to be a little bit more similar to that of the Greeks or the Native Americans. The Slavs, I didn't have time to get too deep into it, other than Perun is associated with both an eagle and a crow sometimes, or a raven. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. So it's almost like the two different aspects of Perun, you know, because I'm sorry, but I don't see much in common between an eagle and a crow, personally.
Right.
You know what I mean? I expected to see that Veles was associated with the crow, but because he's not a sky god, he's not. You know what I mean?
That's interesting.
Yeah, I know. It was very... So, like, I didn't get too in-depth on anything from the Slavic aspect, but... You know, I was kind of surprised that the Hellenics, they pretty much, I only saw the association with them with like tricksteriness in the Hellenic stuff, except for one thing that I read where it said in folklore, it said the crow could not eat seeds of the pomegranate or it would be stuck in the underworld. So it had an association with Persephone through that, obviously,
like that. That's awesome.
Which also kind of brings in that whole liminal, because she is able to move back and forth between the worlds. And so like the crows, like they are able to move back and forth between the worlds, but if they eat the pomegranate seeds, they'll be tied to the underworld, which makes me think that tale kind of has maybe an older tale where the crows come from the underworld.
That's
because like Persephone eats the seeds, so she has to come back to the underworld for that amount of time. So, but the crows they can't, according to this legend, they can't eat the seeds or they get stuck in the underworld. So does that mean they're from there in the first place?
I don't know. That's very interesting. That is very interesting.
I don't know. Like, what do you guys think? Okay. Has anybody ever been told that a crow is a harbinger of death? Who loves Edgar Allan Poe? Look, couldn't get through a Crow episode without mentioning, or couldn't get through the Blackbirds episode without mentioning the blackbirds baked into a pie and quote the raven nevermore. I can't think of any other. Oh, Jeremy the Crow. Jeremy. Oh God.
What's that from?
The Secret of NIMH.
Oh shit, I love him. He likes the sparklies.
So silly, yes.
He is so silly. He loves the sparklies.
I made myself sad. I think of The Secret of NIMH and I get sad.
Yeah, The Secrets of NIMH is really fucked up. It's
sad.
actually really fucked up.
Mrs. Brisby. Oh my gosh.
I need to watch that movie.
Oh my gosh. oh my gosh, like birds play a really big role in that movie.
Mm-hmm. Wow. They do. Birds are nice.
They do. Well, and it's really funny because natural enemies working together for the greater good.
I love that.
Because that's what the crows are all about. I think that's a great place to end. What do you think?
Too. I do too. Thank you guys for listening and sitting with us for a spell. You can catch us on Facebook at Witches Talking Tarot. We're also on Instagram at Witches Talking Tarot and Threads at Witches Talking Tarot.
And we are also on patreon.com/Witches Talking Tarot. So thank you to Pam,
Melissa,
Death by DVD,
and Victoria.
We appreciate you guys. If you want a spiffy shout out like they got, then you can aforementioned link and hit us up, and we'll be happy to provide you with some early ad-free extra content, some stickers, depending on, like there's different stuff at every level, so you're just gonna have to go look and see and then support your favorite witches. And if you're still on the X, we're there at Classiest Witches because we're the classiest witches, so thanks for coming to sit with us,
for a spell.